Okay, so I'm in my little drawing area. As you can see, behind me is one of my painting spots. You're probably going to hear, excuse me, kids screaming in the background because they're out on the playground. And I have to leave my door, one of my sliders open for the cat because he comes and goes as he pleases and I can't lock him out. So at times you may hear gleeful screaming while they just play. So pardon the noise. Excuse me. We have pollen everywhere right now. Everything's covered in green, so my allergies are up. Today, I'm not sure how today's video is going to go, and I don't even know why, but a subject popped into my head a little while ago, and I've been debating for a long time whether to talk about it or not. But I've been watching a lot of videos on actors' roundtables. I don't know, I've been addicted to them lately instead of podcasts about serial killers, which were my favorite for about a year. Lots of podcasts about serial killers. But I started listening to actors' roundtables, and they're really, really interesting, and they're fun, and I feel a connection with them because they're addressing issues that personally I think nobody else has had to deal with, and it turns out, especially on the women's roundtables, they are issues that I've had to deal with. And you know, I listen to the men's roundtables a lot with Tom Hanks and all these great actors, but I watch the faces of actors and actresses who aren't white at these roundtables, and they just kind of sit and stare because there are issues coming up that I know affect, and effect people of color so much more deeply than white people, and they're issues that non-white people have had to deal with forever, for millennium. So I watch their faces and I watch them hold their tongues because I can see the anger building up in them. And I just, I go, please just say it, just say it, just say it. And they're very polite and they never do, unfortunately. But a lot of the actors roundtables where they're discussing issues, women are discussing issues and going back and forth. When there are men at the table, you could see both white and non-white women just sitting politely with their hands folded and staring, and periodically one will speak up. But one of the issues the issue that whether actors or actresses are white or brown or of a non-white race, one of the issues that they talk about a lot is abuse and dealing with abuse of power in the workplace. And I've talked about, in my big grand whoop-de-doo videos, I've talked about dealing with depression and anxiety, but I don't talk about living with PTSD, which I've realized over the past 15 years I've been living with all of my life. PTSD, just having lived through verbal, mental, emotional abuse as a child, with violence always as a threat, and also sexual abuse as a child and as a teen especially, and now decades later, and after therapy and Al-Anon and AA and all this stuff, I'm still living with it. And this is kind of what I want to address. I don't know why, but it popped into my head today, and I've been trying to stay away from the negative as much as possible in these videos, because I don't ever want anyone to feel as badly as I do. I don't want to feed into it. But listening to these women talk, and they're talking about traumas, which is just such a cliche word. I hate it. I hate cliche. I hate cliche. But our entire nation, our entire world is living through one massive trauma right now. And if you watch the reactions and how people are dealing with it, you can see it's trauma. And of course, the reactions that we pay most attention to are the negative ones, the ones where people are just like so furious and I'm not wearing a mask, but you can't tell me what to do, which is like a traumatized child or a traumatized adult that hasn't dealt with it. A traumatized adult that hasn't dealt with their anger and their fear. You know, I'm not wearing a mask, and you know, Bill Gates is going to inject me with a chip. That's brilliant. So he can track me. Well, you know what? Take your phone out of your pocket, because that's tracking you 24/7. Go get a flip phone, genius. Go get a flip phone that doesn't have the capability to follow you around. But anyway, I've been thinking about that and my PTSD. And, you know, this could possibly apply, if I get there, get to the subject, this could possibly apply to an awful lot of people. An awful lot of people. So I lost my job last July, and I've been trying really hard, let's put it this way, as best I can, to get my art in a more stable place financially, so that I'm not dependent on other people for a paycheck. And I don't make videos for like weeks on end, and I'd say, oh, I went down a hidey hole. Well, it's just because I've gotten severely depressed and anxious, but it's also part of my PTSD. With the PTSD, I have a very difficult time sometimes talking, sometimes looking people in the eye. I become paralyzed. I become severely paralyzed, where I'll just sit and I'm shaking, and I can't leave my house anymore. Not every day, but there are a lot of days like that. And anyone who's living with PTSD or any type of depression or anxiety because of COVID and the state of the world in the last 5 years under Trump will know exactly what I'm talking about. We get anxious and fearful around people because we don't know what they're going to do. I've gone into, you know, when I have to go out, when I have to go to the grocery store, I always wear a mask. And people have become more and more aggressive about this wearing a stupid effing mask. I mean, how childish. How childish can you possibly be? And it's always men. It's always white men that get so aggressive. Not only over that, but the price of artwork, or, you know, them having power over you. And I hearken back to non-white people having to deal with white men who feel that they have the utter and complete right to dominate, debilitate, dehumanize others. And I don't mean all white men. I really don't. I have a lot of friends that are white and male. I really do. I was accused a while ago of hating men, and that's not even, Not even close to true. It's just arrogance, arrogant men in general, arrogant, self-important men. And I was so shocked when I was accused of it. I was sitting in a meeting and I was accused of hating men. And I just, what are you talking about? I don't know if it was a knee-jerk reaction to the situation we were in and just the easiest way to insult me or to throw me off my guard, but I know who I am, and it's not even close to true. It's just asinine. You just have to not be an asshole, and I'm fine. But so anyway, let me explain the reason, a few events that have led me to the point now where I am at home a lot, and maybe there are people that can relate. In pretty much every job I've had, except for maybe one or two, I've been the low man on the totem pole. So I'm low hanging fruit, as they say, for people to take their mental and emotional issues out on. I worked for a guy a few years ago. I was his only employee, and he was very closeted. He was so closeted, and there's enough difference, time and space between us now where I can say this, and no one will know who it is or was. But he was so closeted. He was bitter. He was angry. He would drink all day, and he would say, I'm going out, and he would be gone for roughly an hour and a half, and then come back and be happier. Let's put it that way. The tension was a lot less, but he would scream at me, spit at me, he'd corner me, he would get right in my face, and I could do nothing. I needed a job, and he was right down the street, and it was in a business I knew well, so I could run the shop without him, and I did. When he went on vacation once, and of course the minute he got back from vacation, he started screaming at me, and I almost collapsed on the floor at that particular temper tantrum and said, you don't appreciate anything. I was crying. I was hysterical. And that's just part of being abused all the time, is I went to a hysterical space and I couldn't get out to save my life. And we've all worked for people who have used their power over us to manipulate situations, manipulate us, push us to the brink. I've worked for multiple people who will set up a situation where they can abuse me, separate us or me from the dominant crowd, or they will build a little unit of popular pretty people or whatever. They'll separate them versus the few of us, and then it's, well, they did this, this group, this bad group did this thing, or someone in this group, and you need to target them, is always the message. So the popular group feels more powerful, more full of strength, and feels it's valid to abuse. And I've been in those situations many, many times. I've been watching all these videos about actresses and stuff, and how the way they were spoken to, actors and actresses, and of course African American videos. I try to focus on videos where I can learn something about people. So I've been watching all of these videos, and I was watching this woman, and her name escapes me, but I absolutely adore her, she teaches about racism, and she separates people into groups with brown eyes and blue eyes. She will separate people by eye color, which is something that the Nazis did, and that's where she got the idea. And then she will make the blue-eyed people wear a collar, and then physically separate them from brown people, and it's to drive home the idea of racism. You're stupid. The people with the colors and the blue eyes, they are called blueies. And Jane, is it Jane? Jane something? Oh shoot, I adore her too. But she'll call them blueies and say, you know, she'll look at the brown-eyed people and say they're stupid, they're useless, they're so slow, they don't understand anything. And she will pick on each single one of them individually. You know, pick on them for about 2 hours. The lesson is always 2 hours long, or usually. And she'll say, read this. Like, read this. And the person will stand up. And she'll say, did I tell you to stand up? And they'll sit back down. Did I tell you to sit down? And they don't know what to do. The abused doesn't know what to do. And so, sorry, I'm umming a lot. But it's a brilliant lesson. Because she'll say, well, I told you to read that. Once they're sitting down and they don't know what to do, they don't know what's expected of them any longer. She'll say, stand up, read that. And they'll stand up and read it. And then she'll find a reason to pick at them because they've read it without enthusiasm, or they read it too slowly, so they're slow and stupid, or she'll find ways to humiliate them. One lesson I watched a video where she was conducting this class, and they were separated into blue and brown eyes, and she picked at one young woman and said, do you normally take notes during class? And the girl said yes. And she said, well, where's your notebook? The instructor said, where's your notebook? And she said, it's in my backpack. And she said, well, that's stupid, isn't it? If you're going to take notes during my class, you should have a notebook and a pen and a pencil. And she said, the girl said something like yes. And she said, how you know, what are you, a moron, basically? You know, how can you take notes if you don't have your notebook? And so I believe the girl started to get up to go get her notebook. And she said, the instructor said, what are you doing? I didn't tell you to go get it. So what I'm getting to is the abusers put the abusees or the target in a situation where there is absolutely no win. It is no win. And like my boss who screamed and spit at me, screamed constantly, every day, all day long. There was something wrong with everything I did, to the point where I just couldn't stop shaking some days. I was frozen, but I was mentally and emotionally frozen, and I was expected to keep working regardless. There was always something wrong. And I've had decades of jobs like that. I had another one where I was working in back of one of the owners of this place, putting things together, and he would get frustrated, and he would, with whatever he had going on, and he would turn around and call me an effing bastard and kick my desk and rip what I was putting together apart. And we were expected to, or I was expected to just stand there and take it. And nobody stood up for me. Nobody. I've had endless jobs like that, where I was an artist for a company, and the manager of this one particular store would come in my office and take his frustrations and go, okay, well, easy target, she can't leave. Come in my office and yell at me and lambaste me. Even though in this company with hundreds of stores, I was one of the top 5 in the entire company, out of, I think it was 350 stores at that point. You're disorganized. You don't know what you're doing. What's taking so long? Blah, 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 blah. Then he'd spread rumors about me to the other employees. And that happened again at another job more recently, separating them and they, taking vulnerable people and just working to destroy them through rumors and conjecture and calling me names, making fun of me in front of people, lying, outright lying, writing me up for things that didn't happen, or situations he created and then wanted to punish me for having any reaction to. I had another job a few years ago where the supervisor, I have no idea why I'm telling you this. I don't know who this is going to connect to. Maybe there's a point. But the supervisor, my supervisor, the quality control woman, worked kitty corner to me. And she would look at me and go, "You're a piece of shit. You don't know what you're doing. You piece of shit. You're a piece of crap. You don't know anything." Yet, I was one of the faster workers. I cleaned. I did things that all of us on the job should have had to do, but other people didn't want to do. So I was like, I don't care. I'll do it. Sweeping, cleaning out the cooler, etc., washing things. I don't care. It's all part of the job, so I'll do it. She would walk by my desk, throw things at me. "You piece of shit." And she said, "I'm going to get you fired." And eventually I was let go of the job. And it was her, and she got a couple other people roped into it. So once again, we could separate groups, people into categories and groups. And so she let me, she had me let go. I wasn't fired, I was let go. And the boss was so drunk that day, he couldn't even sit up when he told me he was letting me go. And human resources just sat there going like this, I don't know what the problem is. And the managers of the department I was in, all the managers in this one particular business were like, "We don't want you to go. We don't understand. We know this woman's a problem, but we don't understand." So the supervisor was forcing me out. The managers were actually fighting for me, and the owner was just a drunk and felt he needed this one woman, so he bent to her will. Well, the funny thing is, I got a job almost immediately at another similar business. It turned out her best friend was now my supervisor. So she quit the original job, the one that she had been torturing me at, and her best friend hired her to be my supervisor. She literally, this crazy woman, literally quit the original job to go work at the second job with her best friend. And I was having a massive anxiety attack when I found out she had been hired. Everyone there was convinced she was the sweetest woman on the face of the earth, which, most people knew better. I couldn't breathe, nothing. And so as a sideline, I don't know why I'm talking about all of this. I really don't, except that maybe it'll help somebody, or a couple people. Anyway, here's the day of. The day of, I had a friend who was going to drive me to my job because my scooter was dead again, and it would take me an hour to an hour and a half to get to work. So a friend was going to drive me. Well, I had somebody else who had been pushing to drive me. "I want to take you there on your first day. I want to be supportive. I'm me. And I kept saying, no. No, it's okay. I got this. So-and-so's going to drive me. Well, they kept pushing it and kept pushing it and kept pushing it. And I kept saying, no. And then finally I was like, okay, fine, because I couldn't take it anymore. And my anxiety was up to here. So I got in the car morning of, and I was having so such a bad anxiety attack, and I was so depressed over this and so afraid. I could barely speak. I could barely function. And this person was telling me how I had to deal with the abuser. Well, just tell her to be nice to you. Just tell her this isn't acceptable. Like I hadn't fucking done it 50 times. Like I had no clue. And I said, that's not how it's going to work. Because if I tell her that, she'll just get worse. You don't know that. Well, what turned in from I want to be supportive was me being yelled at all the way to work, almost all the way to work, and being dropped off with a, get the hell out of my car. You're horrible. You're this, you're that. I don't want to speak to you for a while. I need a break. So it was once again low-hanging fruit. Got out of the car, walked into the job, got to my desk, and I was shaking. I was shaking because now it's trauma. The woman who had been my abuser at the last job walked in the door wearing this cute little dress with a little bow in her hair, looking adorable, and was, oh, hi, with all these people and cheek kissing her best friend, and they were working side by side. She walked up to me. She goes, you piece of shit. I'm going to get you fired from here too. And then it turned into a situation where I wasn't sure what to do because everything I did was coming out wrong or it needed to be corrected. It was exactly as I was instructed to do, but this is wrong, that is wrong, blah, 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 blah. So once again, it's the abuser using their power to dehumanize, humiliate, blah, 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 and then punishing me for either me reacting or because of a problem they've fabricated. And this is a repetitive pattern, which which kind of explains my PTSD. And how I've gotten to a point where I sometimes can't leave my house because I'm so filled with fear, and also sometimes why I can't make videos, and I'm almost on 30 minutes. I apologize. Anyway, going back to the actors and the actresses, I hear them, the moderator will oftentimes say, why do you do this? You've been through asking the actresses, why do you do this? Why do you keep doing this profession? And they say, because it's the only thing I know how to do. It's my life's purpose. It's the only place I feel like me. And that's the way I feel about artwork. One of the many things I feel about artwork. It is my life's purpose. There is no doubt. It is what I was meant to do. It's been what I wanted since I was 4 years old. All I've wanted. That made me me. Really made, whatever. But it's the only thing I feel solid in. There is no criticism anyone can throw at me that I care about. No one can hold control or power over me while I'm creating artwork. They can hold power and control over me, other ways, like the couple of galleries I've worked in where they've told me, we're not making sales because nobody wants your artwork, that kind of a thing. And it just turned out it was, of course, their issue. 99% of what people say is, hateful things people say is the monsters that someone else has put in their head coming out to play. Somebody told me I'm useless and worthless, so now I'm going to tell you that. My monsters are coming out to play. So, I feel like this time of job loss and COVID has been a way for anyone who has to live like this, live with depression, anxiety, blah, 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 to feel slightly more connected with the world, because pretty much everybody's in the same spot we are. Afraid to leave the house, or feeling that very powerful people have control over you. Thus, I'm not going to wear a mask. And wanting to gain control back over your life. So I've been trying to focus on my artwork, trying desperately to make this financially viable so I don't have to go out in the world again, and I am not subject to abuse. Because for whatever reason, I'm a freak magnet. But we are living in a somewhat level playing field. Somewhat, not completely. But the whole world is going through this emotional turmoil. And I think it's starting to dawn on people, possibly, how other people live. How vulnerable people live. And I don't just mean people who, white people who live with depression and anxiety, but also other races, other religions, or people that live, have chosen to take on other religions and express them. That they are the them. But people who aren't white, they are the them. And right now we're watching the Asian communities across the country be targeted. And that fills me with fear. Absolute sheer terror. I have family members that are of Korean descent. I worry every day. I have worried every day for my black and brown friends, people I love dearly and admire, for over 5 years, but specifically for the past 5 years. So while we're all living under these constraints and under powerful people, let's do our best to try and help one another and try and understand that we're all living with some kind of trauma, something so severe at times it can be debilitating. Absolutely, completely debilitating. I know I am speaking from a place of absolute recognized privilege compared to others. I have trouble just going outside my sliders onto my back patio. It takes every ounce of effort I have some days. And I try and force myself to. I try and force myself to talk to people. And as you've noticed, I get very quiet and I don't make videos. And this is part of the reason why. We're on 34 minutes now. Sorry. I felt this was really kind of important to talk about, and I don't really know why. What I'll do is I'll go shopping one day, the day I have to. I am completely, like happened yesterday, I was completely and totally out of food. And I was trying not to leave my house. And I got to a point where I was so friggin' hungry. I had like an orange left and half an apple and a couple of cucumbers. And I was so afraid to eat them, because if I ate them, then I'd have to leave my house. But I forced myself at the end of the day to leave my house. And I went and I picked up chicken and a couple of other things. But I always try to leave a few, how are we doing here? A few necessities off the shopping trip, so I'm forced to go out again another day. And when I go out, I force myself to say hi to people and talk to people so that my PTSD, my depression, my anxiety, and all the experiences I've had don't completely rule me every single time with every breath, let's put it that way. I don't know if anything I had to say was confirmation for anyone or helpful to anyone, but hopefully you find some solace, some understanding, some community, and some validation in my videos, in these little videos, these little chats. People oftentimes ask if they can call me, if we could do a video chat. Those are really hard for me. They're very hard. I have a hard time with eye contact sometimes. It's almost painful. It's just, So I try not to do those or visit, except for a couple people who clearly get the level of effed up I am. And don't push me. And I have a friend up the street, my friend Roxy. He's a tattoo artist. One of the men that I apparently hate. My friend Roxy and his coworker Tyler. When I know that I've been alone too long and I need company, physical company, I go to them and we'll sit and we'll talk about anything. Usually meaningful things. And then I'll say, okay, I can't do anymore. And they let me go. They're like, okay, Beck, no problem. Out you go. I'm very fortunate to have them. So anyway, if that validates you, if it confirms anything that you're thinking or feeling, yip-de-doo. If it's just me blathering on, I apologize. But take a listen to these actors studios, not actors studios, it's, I can't remember who hosts them. They're actors roundtables and they're really, really, really interesting. But after this video, I want you to sit and look at the non-white actors and actresses. And think about what they've been dealing with for their entire lives, for their parents' lives, for decades and millennium, and how this PTSD is actually in their bloodstream and in their DNA. And how do we help? How do we fix this so no one has to feel like this all the time? All the time. Fearful to go outdoors. Fearful to make eye contact. Afraid of saying the wrong thing or looking the wrong way, looking too aggressive, looking like a threat, which I've been told. I remember one time I was told by a boss who was writing me up for something. He illustrated this physically. He stood up and he said, "You looked at me like this. And you had your hands clenched." I don't look at people like that. I never approach anyone like that. He was fucking lying in front of his assistant so he could write me up. I don't do clenching my fists and just the most asinine things that, I've been punished for. So watch these actors roundtables. And, if you're wondering if racism does exist, as people have said to me it doesn't, start watching more videos. Jane Elliott is her name, is the instructor's name. Jane Elliott, or Janet? Janet? Okay, it's something like Jane Elliott runs these fabulous talks or classes on racism, and you can see them on YouTube, explaining racism. It also explains sexism, abuse, everything else. But just sit and watch. If you honestly believe that racism, sexism, abuse doesn't exist, and it is up to the abuser to fix the situation, look for her videos. Look for the videos on actresses at the actors roundtables. They're just mind-blowing. And hopefully we've ripped a couple of band-aids off. Anyway, it's been 40 minutes now, so I'm going to shut up. That's as much talking as me and my little teal hair can handle today, okay? And let's get some work done too, shall we? Let's do that. Okay, ciao, ciao, boink.